All right. So today we are going to learn about logical functions and all these people joining in now. Eh? I will swear for them. Oh. Let me just leave the call open. Sorry. Unfortunately, that cannot be done. All right. So we're going to be learning about logical functions and statistical functions. I hope we're able to cover all of that today, right? So for logical functions, we have the if, the and, the or, the if error, and also some nested functions. So let's quickly understand what the if function is about. So as the name implies, logical functions are functions that use to perform common logic or logical statements or whatever, right? And then we have some few of them that we use all the time. That's the if, the and, the or, the if error, and the nested function is just combining maybe one or two logical functions together, right? So but we're going to understand what that means. So for the if function checks whether a condition is met and return one value if true and another value if false, right? So the if function is just like your younger siblings at home that you send to go to the store. So you're like, oh, go to the store, right? And then you're saying, go and buy me Capri right? And you're saying, if you find Capri orange, buy it. If you don't, get back. So the logical test is where are you moving to? So the logical test here that the if function takes or your brother is going to take is go to the store and buy me Caprisol, right? So what should your brother do if he sees Caprisol or if he sees orange Caprisol? He should buy it. So the value if true is buy it. So what happens if he does not see Caprisol that is orange? What should he do? You can now say, okay, come back home. So the logical test is the Caprisol that you're seeing there in the store, is it orange or is it not orange? Right, so you see orange Caprisol. So the value if true is what the if function is going to do, and the value if false is what it's also going to do. So for instance, if I say is 1 greater than 2, right? So if it is true, what should you do? She say yes, 1 is greater than 2. If it is false, what should you say? She said no, 1 is not greater than 2. So that's basically what the if function does. So it takes your statement and then it will evaluate it and see the condition. So if you miss to the true, like what it's supposed to be, so if the value result to true, you tell it what to do. If the value result to false, you tell it what to do also. So that's just what the so your if function is like your errand boy you send on message and saying, okay, go and check this thing for me and do this if you find this and do that if you find that. So that's just what the if function is. And the if function is supposed to be your best friend because in data cleaning, you're going to be using it a lot in terms of grouping things, right? So you're going to say, go to the class. If it's a boy, take the person here. If it's a girl, take the person here. So that's what you're going to be doing in terms of grouping using the if function. And we're going to understand better when we go to Excel. Then we have the AND function. The AND function determines if the conditions that it has been given is true, all the conditions, right? If it is true, it will return true. If it is false, it will return false. What am I trying to say? So in other words, the AND function evaluates to true if all conditions are met, right? Basically saying, okay, for instance, if I say my name is Annie, I'm a data analyst, I'm a microbiologist, the AND function is going to return true because everything I said is true, right? But then if I say my name is Annie, I'm a data analyst, I'm a doctor, the AND function is going to return false because one of the conditions I gave to it is false. So the AND function will only return true if all conditions are met. So if I give it 10 conditions and 9 result to true and only one is false, the AND function is going to return false. So the only time the AND function returns true is if all conditions are met, right? So that's for the AND function. Then we have the OR function. Where's my note on the OR function? Ching. Okay, so the OR function is just the opposite of the AND function, right? So the OR function just needs only one of the conditions to be true for it to say it is true. So for instance, if I tell the off function, if I give it my name is Annie, I'm a pilot, I'm a doctor, the off function will say true because my name is Annie. At least one of it resulted to true, right? So if I say my name is Paul, I'm a doctor, I'm a pilot, the off function is going to say false because there is no true statement there. So the only time the off function is going to result to false is only when everything is false. But when even just the off function needs only one statement to be true for it to result to true. That's the difference between the and the or. For the and, it needs all the statements to result to true for it to say true. While the or needs just one of it to be true for it to say. So if I give it 10 statements and 9 of it is not true or are not true, the or function, you just have only one that is true, the or function is going to return true. So that's the difference between the or and the and function. Then we have the if error function. So what the if error function does is that it basically handles errors wherever it finds error, right? So you are combining the if function and error. You're saying that, okay, if you find error in this calculation, do this. That's why you are combining it together. So the if and the error. So you're saying that run this calculation or check this thing for me. If you find an error, do this. So the if error is like a bodyguard in a party, right? And you say, oh, this party is just for girls, right? So the if error is there standing at the party door. So if he sees girls coming into the party, he will not stop them, he just allow them to go upstairs and right. But then the moment he sees a guy, the if error sees a guy, you just hold the guy, or maybe do what you say you should do. So if I say, okay, when you see a guy, attack the guy or chase him away. So it will take the value, that is the people coming to the party, right? It will evaluate them. And if you see that is a girl, it will let the person pass. But then if he says that is a boy, that's if boy, that's we are just changing error to boy. So if value is a boy, what should I do? So okay, kick him out. So it will now perform that function or that logic you want it to do if he finds an error, if he finds a boy at the party. That's just for the if error function. So, but then if it does not find an error, your calculation moves smoothly, your values move smoothly. The only time it comes into play is only when it finds an error. So that's what the if error function is used for. Then we have the nested function. So nested function basically is just combining two or more functions together. So since we've been working, when we did basic functions, we did only just one function, right? But we can combine two functions together. So we can combine the sum and the max function together. We can combine the if function and the and together to make it make more sense, which we are going to do. We can combine the if and the or function together to make it make more sense, right? So that is just what the nested function is about. Basically having more than one function. Yeah, basically having more than one formula inside of the calculation. That's just what the nested function or formula is about. So that's it for the logical functions. Okay. So we're going to go over to Excel before we start explaining statistical functions. We're going to go over to our Excel to understand this if to understand these logical functions better. Okay. Are we still there?
No.
You are not here.
Yeah, we are.
Say na no. Okay. All right. So let's move over to Excel. Now this is for your assignment. So logical functions. So now, from if you notice in your assignment questions, I gave you questions like you're a data analyst, right? So I try as much as possible to teach you how to apply these functions that you've been learning, these basic functions in your normal data analytics world, right? So if you're a data analyst, how do you apply these functions or when do you use these functions? That is why your assignment questions came in such a way that is asking you, oh, as a data analyst, this department wants to do this, how will they do it? Because they're asking you as a data analyst and all of that, right? So that is a better way to learn, putting yourself in that light. You see some people they tell you, oh, it's easier to learn on the job. So basically you're pretending to be on the job because it's easier to learn when you're on the job compared to when you're just learning, right? So we have the if function. So I said that the if function is like your errand boy and the if function should be your best friend. So if after this class you don't know how to use the if function still, I think you should go and practice more because you're going to be needing the if function is your bestie, like it should be your best friend in Excel because you're going to be needing that function a lot. So now you're now a class teacher and you're trying to grade your student into three categories or right. So you're trying to grade your first one is that you're trying to grade your student into two categories. Those people that scored F and those people that scored A, right? But then you have um the results, that's the scores, right? For the first person, the score, and then you want to grade them into A and F, right? So if the person scores less than 50, you want to group the person as F. The person score less than greater than 50, you want to call the person as A. So if I come here, I can easily just write A, and here I can write A again because this is greater than 50, right? And here again I'll write A. But then this my data is really small, so I can easily just write it myself without writing any functions. But what if I have over 100 students? Because 100 students is a lot. So if I have over 100 students and I have their test score and I want to group them into A and F. So those people that scored A and those people that scored F. So what function am I going to use for this? This is where the if function comes into play because I'm trying to categorize, right? So I'm trying to categorize these students into two categories. So I want to have those ones that are scored A and those ones that are scored B because we have various scores. So that this way it will be easier for me to analyze my data. Because if I'm trying to analyze data like this using all of these scores, by the time I create a chart, it's going to be looking messed up, right? So but then I want to group them into two categories. Those people that scored A and those people that scored F, right? So we say A is anybody greater than 50 and F is anybody less than 50. So using the if function, I'm going to call it to help me do this, right? So in here, my C2, I'm going to say equals to if
Yes, sir.
my voice is echoing. Is my voice echoing? Because I cannot hear myself. How are you hearing?
We can hear you clearly.
Okay.
We can hear you clearly.
All right. So let's continue. So I'm trying to use the if function to categorize my students into two categories, right? So A and F people, right? So I have the first score. So I'm going to ask the if function, is this score, this first score I have in B2, is it greater than 50? That's what I'm going to ask this. Is this score greater than 50? Right? So I'm going to say if function, I'm giving it a logical test. So the logical test is B2 greater than 50? So and remember what we have here. We say if it's greater than 50, you should name it as A, right? You should give the person A. So value if true. So if it's greater than 50, what should it do? So I'm going to have a comma so that you can go to the next one. So value if true, I'm going to say in quotes because I'm writing a text, right? I'm going to say A. So if the if function checks if B2 is greater than 50, if it's greater than if 50, so what should it do if it's true? Remember we said sending your brother to the supermarket and saying go and buy me orange capricol. So if you see orange capricol, buy it. If you don't, come back home, right? So that's the value if true. So if this is greater than 50, tell me A or give me A as the answer. What happens if it's not greater than 50? That is, it is less than 50, right? So what is now going to be our value if false? Comma, we're now going to have F. This is very simple and straight to the point. We're asking the if function, is B2 greater than 50? If it's greater than 50, that's value if true. Name it A. If it is not greater than 50, which is obviously less, if something is not greater than 50, is either equals to or less than 50, right? So every other person left there is either equals to or less than 50 because you're not greater than 50, you're less than 50, right? So name that other people as F. That's it. So we're now going to close our bracket and enter. So he gave us this one as A, which is right. So I'm not going to start writing my functions all over again. I'm just going to autofill. So remember, if you bring the plus sign here or you bring your cursor here and you double click, you have this. So you can see this is greater than 50, so we have A. This is greater than 50, so we have A. Why do we have F here? because this is less than 50. Why do we have here f here? Because this is less than 50. So what the if function have done for me within a few steps is something that I can be doing overnight, trying to look at my students and check, okay, is this greater than 50? I'll write f, is it greater than. For using the if function, I'm being able to categorize my students into two categories: those people that scored f and those people that scored a. So this way, if I'm creating a visual, I can easily just create something that is very easy for people to understand or people to read. So I can say, okay, those ones that score A are those ones that are greater than 50, and those ones that score F are those ones that are less than 50. Right? So that's just what the if function is about. Checking if a condition is met and doing what you want it to do if it is true, and what you want it to do if it is false. Are we good?
Sure, sure. Is it just numbers we
Yes.
can only use the if function for?
No, we're getting there. No, not just numbers. All right.
Okay, thank you.
So that's for the first one, right? Our normal if, we just gave it true or false. Now we can get really complicated. So we can use two ifs inside of one formula. Remember, we're talking about nested formulas. So nested if is a function also. So it's called nested if, having more than one if inside of a function, right? So over here, I'm trying to do something. I want to group my students into three categories. I don't just want to give anybody straight F or straight A. So what I want to do is, if you score less than 30, you're getting F, right? Anything less than 50, you're getting a D. Anything greater than 50, you're getting an A, right? So greater than 50, A, and so on, right? So now, if you notice our if function, it has only two, true or false. There is no third one, right? But then I have three categories. How do I do this? This is now where I have to call in another if function inside of our function. How do we do this? So let's try that here. We're trying to group into three categories: A, D, and F. So in here, I'm going to say equals to the if function, right? So I'm giving it a logical test. This what I have here in B2, is it less than 30? If it is less than 30, what should it do? It should call it an F. Now, if I put a comma, it's asking me value if true, and if I give it value if false, and if I give it value if false, I close my bracket and enter. But now, what will happen to the third value that we want to put there? So now this is where we call out another if function. So the very first one we are saying is B2, what we have in B2, is it less than 30? If it is less than 30, give it F. If it's not less than 30, perform another if function, right? We're calling another if function, we're giving it another logic. We're telling it, okay, go back to that B2 and check again if the value you have there is less than, I think less than 50, right? What do we have? Okay, less than 50. Check if the value you have there is less than 50. If it is less than 50, what should it do? It's now going to be D, right? That's value if true. So value for the first one, let's go over it again. We say, is B2 less than 30, right? If it is less than 30, give it an F. We can go over it the other way around, right? So we can start with 50. Let's start with 50 so you don't get confused. So if B2 is greater than 50, give it an A. That was what we asked to do, right? So if it is not greater than 50, what should we do? Perform another if function and check if B2 is less than 50, right? But now, if you do it this way, you're not going to get you're not going to target those people that are less than 30. Why? Because the moment I say check if it is less than 50, it goes straight to check, and you know any value that is less than 30, you know that any value that is less than 30 is also less than 50, right? So if I say less than 50, it's targeting everybody that is there. So that's why I started with the less than 30 first, right? So if we check with the less than 30 to go here and say, okay, is 8 less than 30? Is not. Okay, what should I check again? Is it less than 50? Okay, it's not. What should I check again? Is it greater than 50? This is now the third one is going to perform for us, right? So here, instead of checking if it is greater than 50 first, I'm going to check if it is less than 30 for the very first one, which is going to give us If it is less than 30, give the person an F. So the second one is if it is less than, okay, yes, this is correct. If it's less than 50, give it a D. So what happens if it is not less than 50? We can tell you to perform another if function. So we can say if again. Now check if what you have here is greater than 50. So basically I'm telling you, you're calling me over the phone, right? And I'm asking you, oh, the number you have there, is it less than 30? You're telling me no, right? So you give it a value if true. So what should you do again? Check if that same number is less than 50. Okay, no, it's not less than it. So what should I do? Check again if this number is greater than 50. So now it is greater than 50. What should you do? Call it an A. So for our value if false, you can always leave it empty, right? What do we mean by leaving it empty? So we can open and close a string. This is called an empty string. When you open a string, a quote, and close it without putting anything in it, it's called an empty string, right? It is empty, right? So let's go over it again. I know that the nested if can be confusing. That's why I'm going over it like this. So I have three categories I want to group my students into: F, D, and A. So for you to get an F, it means that you scored less than 30. For you to get a D, it means that you scored less than 50, right? For you to get um an A, it means that you scored greater than 50. Anything greater than 50 is an A, right? So I'm not saying check if this person scored less than 30. This person scored less than 30. We're saying, okay, give the person an F. And we're checking, is this person score less than 50? If the person did, give the person a D. And we're checking this person score greater than 50. If yes, give this person an A. And then we have value if false because we're not performing anything again. This is going to handle all of our data. So anybody less than 30 is 29 to 0. Anybody less than 50 is 50 till 0 also. So anybody greater than 50 is 50 till infinity, right? Now we're going to close our bracket the number of times that we opened it. Remember, until you see the black one. I said that in our last class. And I don't think I said that. So if you open your bracket, right, you're going to close it the number of times that you opened it. And the trick is the last one must be black. So if I remove this, you can see that it's still red. So the black, if I have this, I've overclosed my bracket. You can never have two black brackets at the end. It's just one, right? So it's going to be colored, colored, colored until you see a black bracket. You know that you're done closing. If you don't close it the number of times that you open it, you're going to be getting an error. It could lead to an error. So if I say enter, I have A. So somebody will be saying something somewhere in their mind, but let me clear them now. So they'll be saying, if you say less than 50 can also give you less than 30 now. So by the time you say less than 50, those ones that will be targeted will also get D. So somebody that is scoring 20, because the person is less than 50, the person will get a D. No, that's not possible. Why? So for instance, if I have something like this, if I have 1 and I have 2 and I have 3, right? And I have 4, right? So if I say I'm looking for a number that is less than 2 out of these numbers, right? I say, oh, I'm looking for numbers that are less than 2. It's going to give me 1, right? So 1 will be out. So 1 is out. So if I come to the class where you have people with these numbers and I say, I'm looking for a number that is less than 2, they are going to give me 1. I'll take 1 out of the class. So 1 is no longer there again in the picture. So if I come and I say, oh, I'm looking for a number that is less than 3, there is no how 1 is going to be there. So what I'm going to now take is just 2. So that's what is happening. So if the if function goes here, it will check if this number is less than. To check if this number, that's why you notice that we call F, but this is also less than 50. But because we said less than 30 first, the 30 has gone there and
Hello,
it
good
has.
evening. Please, I'm not seeing the screen. I think it's your network.
Okay, let's continue. So the 30 has gone there and it has taken 23. So 23 is out of it. So the if function, the part that is talking about 50, less than 50, cannot see 23 again because 23 is out, right? So if you come and start arguing that, okay, 50 is 23 is less than 50, now why didn't he give it a D? That is the explanation. Like I said here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 people in the class, and I come and I say, who is less than 2? And the person comes out, oh, I'm number 1, and I take the person out. Is the person still there? No, right? So the person is no longer there. I cannot see the person when, or somebody else cannot see the person when they come. So if someone comes and say, "Oh, I'm looking for a number that is less than two," sorry, that is less than three. Two is less than three, but we don't have one anymore, so you cannot add one to it. So one is already gone. So we are pretending like one is not there. So right. So two is now going to follow that person alone. That's the same thing that happened there. So when we said we are looking for number that is less than 30, he gave us this. So when we now say we are looking for number that is less than 50, this is less than 50. But because this is not here anymore, it has already handled it. You cannot handle it twice. So that is why you don't have D attached to it. You have F, right? So in case you are confused about that, because I know somebody was going to ask that, I hope that is clear. Are we good?
Please, don't be
Yes.
offended. Why did you have an open string when you're writing the formula? Why do you have an open string?
Because I don't want to leave it empty. I can leave it empty, right? But it's not the proper way to write it. I don't have anything to tell it to do if you resort to force. There's no sorry, what am I opening? I don't have any other thing to tell it to do if it results to force. I can put zero there if I want. I can put one, I can put anything, but I've already handled everything I wanted to handle. So people I want to target are less than 30, less than 50, and greater than 50. So everybody basically in the data set is targeted already. I don't have any other thing to grade. So I can put in an extra string just not to leave my formula anyhow. I can decide to just keep it by putting a comma and it's still going to work perfectly. So let me show you. So if I remove the empty string and just enter, right? So basically you are telling the if function, if all of these things results to false, don't do anything. That's just what it means. So I'm saying, okay, if you go and check all of these things, these are my conditions I want to be met. And if they don't meet any of these things, which is not possible, don't do anything. Do you
Okay, in
understand?
this kind of, yes, I understood. In this kind of formula, writing this formula, is there a sequence to write it to? Like, can you start from the less than to write down, or is it possible for you to start from maybe start with if b2 greater than 50, give us a, then write, then b2 less than 30, give us f, follows through. Is it possible?
Yes, you can write if B2 is greater than 50, A. If it is less than 30, this. If it is less than 50, this. But if you turn it the other way around, if you say if B2 is greater than 50, and then if you say less than 50, you know that this is less than 50. So the less than 50 will first of all catch this one. So when you now say less than 30, let's do the same thing here. Let's do three sides so you see what I'm talking about. Right. So here, in here, if I say equals to if function, and I say if this B2 that we have here is greater than 50, call it A, right? Or else perform another if function and check if what you have here is, let's say, less than 50, right? And I have another condition. So this is supposed to be D. And then I have another condition. If what I have here is less than 30, right? What should I do? You should now say F, or else let's just leave it empty, right? Close, 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 and enter. Now, if I autofill, can you see that this is D? Because the less than 50 got it first. So the less than 50 got it out of the way. So less than 30 is coming and it's saying, oh, I cannot find anybody in here that is less than 30, right? But if I do it this other way, so anything you're doing, you have to look at the figures that you have there and who is going to be targeted first according to what you want. So if I say if function and I check if what I have here is greater than 50, and if it is, you should say A. If it is not, you should perform another if function and check if what I have here is less than 30, right? If it is, you should say F, right? If it is not, you should perform another if function and check if what I have here is less than 50. If it is, you should say D. Sorry, I don't put my comma. If it is, you should say D. If it is not, you should just leave it empty. So I'm going to close 1, 2, 3. So now if we autofill, can you see that this is now F? So the 30, the less than 30 got there first and collected this 23 and collected this 29 because they are both less than 30. So when the less than 50 came, which is supposed to be D, it did not find anything that is less than. So it's going to be, so if you run it this way, these two will be removed first by the less than 30. It's going to say, oh, I'm taking you away. So by the time the less than 50 comes inside or trying to perform its own function, it's not going to find anything that is less than 50. That is why you don't have any D here. But when in this place, when you called out the less than 50 first, 23 is also is obviously less than 50. So the less than 50 took it away. By the time the less than 30 got in there, it did not find anything that is less than 30 anymore, right? So it couldn't group anything like that. This one has already been given D, so he didn't find anything. That's why there is no F here, right? But you can see that the greater than 50 worked perfectly because if it is not less than 50 or less than 30, it is obviously greater. So there's no greater value that is fighting with it. So if I have two greater values, let's say greater than 50 and greater than let's say greater than 50 and greater than um greater than what will I use now? Who is that person? Name myself. I'm trying to think of what to use. I don't
More Umi, please mute your mic.
I'm trying to look for something. I don't know if you can understand what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry, hey, can this person connect? Hello?
Among mute your mic,
Among me
please.
and Valentine, you guys mute your mic. Please. Time is going already. We still have a lot of things to do.
So do you understand what I'm trying to say with the if function?
Yeah, yes, you can understand.
Okay. So that's basically it, right? So whatever way you want it to perform your calculation for it, you just have to tell the if function what to do first. And the if function is going to. So the if function is like a errand boy. The only thing it does what you want it to do for you. That's just what it is. So if you want it to check if this number is greater than first, it's going to do that. If you want it to check if the number is less than first, it's going to do that. But just know that if it handles this number in this particular place, it's not going to sit in this other side to handle for you, right? So if you're saying something is less than 30 and you're also checking something less than 50, obviously it's not going to find this this 23 there because less than 30 already took it away. So that's just what it is, right? So what we just did now is called a nested if, having if inside of another if, right? So to perform one more example on the if function, we're going
Please,
to
man,
use
sorry to bring it back. I was saying that the close bracket has to be 3 if we're using an if function that is 3.
yes, the close brackets, whether you are using if function or you're using another function entirely, the number of times you open a bracket to write a function is the number of times you're going to close it. So whether it is if function or and or sum is the number of times that you're going to close it. And the trick is the last one, right? So sometimes you open up to 5 or 6 brackets and you might lose count of how many you opened. So but just know that the last one must be black. So you just keep closing until you see a black bracket and you know that you're done closing. So you cannot have two at the end, right?
Okay, noted. Thank you.
All right. So now the if function doesn't only work with numbers. Oh, what did I do? Sorry. So the if function doesn't only work with numbers, it works with text also, right? So you can check text. So for instance, you're not working as a data analyst in a delivery company and you're trying to work on this data that you have that's telling you the product and the product status, right? And the delivery status of the product and what action is required. So your boss now said, okay, group these things into 3 categories for me. So if the goods have been delivered, say yes, put yes in there, right? We want to tag it as delivered. So yes. So if it is out for delivery, we should say on its way, right? Then if it is in transit, we should now say no. So your boss just want to have 3 things in there. So you want to have either yes, no, or on its way. How do you do that? Do you go to your data and start checking, oh, delivered? Yes. Not delivered? No. That's going to be stressful. But using the if function, we can do that without any stress. So we want to group into three categories. Yes for delivered, out for delivery, we want to target as on its way, and in transit, we want to target as no. So in here, we're going to say equals to if, right? So if what we have here, right, in L2 is equals to delivered, so we can write it anyhow, whether in capital letters or in small letters, as long as the spelling is correct, right? So if what we have here is equals to delivered, we want to do what? We want to say yes, right? That's what we asked. So what happens if it is not delivered? We have other things we are supposed to also check out for delivery and in transit, right? So we are going to give it another if function. So we are going to check if what we have here. So basically you can see that it's delivered, but then we're trying to write this function for every other things that you cannot see. So you can just double click, right? So but if what we have here, what we have here is equals to out for delivery, right? What should it do? It should say on its way, right? That's the second one. So what happens if it is not out for delivery? It is not delivered, it is not asked for delivery. What happens? You should perform another if function, right? You should perform another if function and check if what you have there. So we're basically just thinking that this is a box. So you can see delivered, but just pretend like that is the box that you don't know what is inside. So we are now doing a guesswork. We are saying that okay, if what you have inside this box is equals to delivered, tell me yes. If it is not, check the box again and check if it is out for delivery. If what you have there is out for delivery, tell me it's on its way. If it is not, check the box again and check if what you have there is equals to in transit. So if it is in transit, what should you do? You should say no, right? So what happens if it is not in transit, it is not delivered, it's not out for delivery, it's not in transit? What happens? So let's just basically say, let's tell our boss something. Let's say, we don't know or unknown. Let's just put unknown. Let's just put something, right? So we can just put anything. We can say unknown. So if it's either what we have in our box is delivered. So if it's delivered, yes. If it is out of delivery that is there, tell me as on its way. If it's in transit, say no. If it is not any of these three things, just tag it as unknown. So we basically don't know what that particular thing is because we're supposed to have delivered, out for delivery, and in transit, right? So now you can leave it as unknown, you can leave it empty as an empty string, you can decide not to write anything at all, right? So close our bracket one, you can see that it's purple. Close our bracket twice, you can see that it's red. Close our bracket the third time, you can see that it's black, meaning that I open my bracket three times. So let's count how many times it's open. One, two, three. So we're closing it three times. So if I enter, you can see delivered, yes. So you can see whether it's in capital letter or in small letter or in big letter, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that the spelling is correct. As long as the text matches what you have in the box, it's okay. So it's not case sensitive, in other words. So now if I autofill, you can see in transit, what did it say? It should say no, right? Delivered, yes. This place we have delivered in capital letters, yes. So when the data is head on its way, when we say out for delivery. So using the if function, I'll be able to categorize my data into three categories, either yes, no, on its way, right? So the other part of my data should now say be unknown. That's if it is not delivered, it's not in transit, it's out for delivery, or it is unknown. Hope that is clear. We spend a lot of time explaining the if function.
Yes, it is very clear. But please,
I
why are
have a
we
question.
having equals to at the front of the alphabet and not having it in the numbers?
Not having what in the numbers?
Equals to.
Why are you having equals to in the numbers? You can only use equals to if you are trying to compare the numbers now. If you are trying to check if the number is equals to that. So if I want to check if this is equals to 88, I can use equals to 88. But I'm trying to see, according to what we have in our data, we are trying to greater than or less than. So you can use equals to if not.
I have one question for the if function. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
What if we are using numbers to represent the values that we are trying to get?
What if you're using what?
Numbers.
To represent which values?
Yes, not the alphabets or the words. So let's say the F or A and D. What if we are using numbers? Are we going to write it the same way?
Let me close my Excel. Yes, now you can write it the same way. If I'm using if I here, right?
Yes, there.
So if I don't want it to be A, I can say 78, right? If I
So
don't
we are not
want
going
it to
to
be
use the apostrophe.
what have I been singing in this class since?
Uh,
If you're writing numbers, you don't write numbers in quotes. If
no.
you write numbers in code, just know that your Excel will be reading that number as a text. So by the time you're trying to perform any calculation that has to do with numbers, your Excel will tell you that it cannot recognize it because it's obviously a text. So you don't write numbers in quotes. When I was writing greater than 50, did I put 50 in quotes? Are we there? Who is the person that asked me that question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm the one.
Did I put
Yeah,
50 in
exactly.
quotes? No. But now that
No.
I wrote the one for text, didn't I put it in quotes?
Yeah, you did.
Because
That's
it's
fine.
text.
Thanks.
That's why. And that person that was
Yeah.
asking me why didn't I use equals to? We're checking if the number is less greater than or less than. I can say is it equals to 30. That works. So using the if
Okay, I
function,
understand now.
you can use the equal sign. I gave you comparison operator in the beginning of this class. There's a reason why I started with all the operators that you have. I gave you comparison operators and I said equals to, not equals to, less than, greater than or equals to. You thought it's because I want to teach you basic mathematics. It's so that something like this, you know, this if function is used for comparison and you can use any of the comparison operators that you want to. Hope that is clear.
Yes,
So
thank you
I have
very
a
much.
question. If we're using the if function and I want to drag down, but then I'm working with a large data set and I cannot drag down because it's going to take a lot of time. What function can I use? What can I use to autofill the cells?
I only know two ways to fill cells, right? Maybe there are other ways, but I really don't know. Now, if I come here, I said it in our class before. I don't know if you were not there and if you did not watch the videos. Now, if I put my plus, you can see this plus sign, the way it is in this box, and you can see the way it is in this box. When I put it at the end, you can see that it has changed. There's a difference between this, and this, right? So now you can double click the autofilled automatically, right? This will go down to the very last. But if your village people decide to hold your Excel and says that way will not work, you have to drag it to the very last. Those are the two ways I know how to autofill. I don't know any other way to autofill. So if somebody knows, can share with us.
Okay, so I just need to just double click on that arrow there, then to just autofill, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Alright. Okay, so I want to believe that the if function is settled. You people that are talking about doing corrections in class, 1 hour and we're still in if function. You are playing. Let's continue. So we're going to learn about the AND function now. I hope we understand the if function. Even if you don't understand, just go back to the videos later. The if function is very simple for you to understand. Once you know how to use it, you are going to love it. Trust me. So now we have the AND function, right? And we say that the AND function is only going to return true if all conditions that we have is true, right? So we want to check something. We have test grading of our students. We want to check if the first score is greater than 10 and if the second score is greater than 20, right? Score 1, is it greater than 10? Score 2, is it greater than 20? So if we use the AND function returns only two things. It's not like your if function that if it is true, do this, if it is false, do this. The AND function is just going to tell you that true or false. So if I say equals to the AND function, I'm going to give it the logic. And the first logic is what I have in B2, that's the first call, is it greater than 10? That person that was asking me about number, let's use equals to 10. We're going to change that. So what I have is it equals to 10? That's the first logic I have. And the second one I have, what I have here, is it greater than 20? So these two conditions must be met, right? So for the AND function to return true to me, it means that B2 must be equal to 10 and C2 must be greater than 20. So I can give it other logic, you can see third logic, you can give it fourth, right? So remember I said something about the square brackets in our last two classes, that if you see a square bracket, it means that it can be skipped. So if you skip it, your calculation will still go further. So I can give it only one logic. I can give it 2, I can give it 3, I can give it 4, I can give it 5 up to 10. But the condition for it to return true is that all of these conditions I've given to it must be true. So for the AND function to tell me true, it means that B2 must be equals to 10 and C2 must be greater than 20. So if I close my bracket and enter, so it says false. But this is equals to 10 now. But is this greater than 20? No, right? So let's autofill and see if we're going to get true everywhere. You can see that we have false all true. This is not equals to 10, but this is greater than 20. But the AND function is like, oh, I'm sorry, the only time I'm going to say it's true is only when these conditions are met, right? So if I change that to say, okay, is this greater than 10 and is this greater than 20? Let's see what the AND function says. So if I say equals to AND and I give it what I have here, is it greater than 10, right? And what I have here, is it greater than 20? Close my bracket, enter. So it says false. This is not greater than 10. This is not even greater than 20. So no, we don't even have any true there. But let's autofill. So it gave us true here. Let's see why. This is greater than 10. This is greater than 20. So it gave us true. Let's see why it gave us true here again. This is greater than 10 and this is greater than 20. That's why it gave us true here. So the AND function is really strict. So if you give it 10 conditions, all these 10 conditions must be true before it's going to tell you true, right? So that's for the AND function. Very simple and straightforward. Now we're going to come back to how to make this AND function make sense. That's where we're going to be talking about nested function, because you cannot be having true or false. You have to change it to something that makes sense, that's easy for somebody to read. Because your stakeholder, when you are creating charts, you create a chart that is saying true or false. So if you're not available in the office, what happens? Who is going to know the meaning of true or false, right? So we're going to make it make sense. Okay, so that's for the AND function. Hope nobody have any issues concerning this, because this one is very straight to the point. But we're going to come back to it and see how to make sense out of the true or false. Is anybody confused?
We are fine.
Okay. Now for the OR function. The OR function is the opposite of the AND function. The OR function just needs only one to be true for it to say true oh. So it means that if I give it 10 conditions and the 10 conditions result to true, it will say true. If I give it 10 conditions and 9 is false and 1 is true, it will tell me true. So the only time the AND function the OR function is going to say false is only if all conditions are false. So the OR function is like saying is either this or this or this or this. So if everything is false, the OR function is like, oh, sorry, I can't help you. I'm giving you false, right? So let's check if the number we have first, if it is less than 30, what we have in number 1, and if the number we have in 2 is it less than 20, sorry, greater than 30, greater than 20, less than 30, right? So for the very first time, what is it? Equals to all, and we're saying what we have in B4, right? Sorry, I think this is a bit tiny. So equals to all function, and we're saying what we have in B4, right? That's this number we have here. Is it greater than 30? That's the first condition, or the first logic, right? We're giving it another logic. Or what we have in C4, is it greater than 20? Or what we have in C D for is it less than 30, right? We're going to close our bracket and enter. It says false. So why is it telling us false? You can see that the OR function it resulted to false. That's strange because it hardly result to false. So let's autofill and find out why. Because you can see true, true. This one is saying false. Why? We asked it the first time. We said, is this number greater than 30? That's what we asked it, right? This is not greater than 30. So it's like, oh, sorry. You check the second one. This number, is it greater than 20? You say, no, it's not greater. We check the third one. Is it less than 30? 65 is not less than 30. That's why it gave us false. You can see that everything we have here, all the logic resulted to false, right? That's the only time the OR function is going to return false. Let's see why it gave us true here. We say, is this greater than 30? Is it greater than 30? 7 greater than 30? No, right? But then, okay, let's see why it gave us true. You check the second one. Is this greater than 20? Yes, it is greater than 20. The third one, yes, it is less. Okay, you can see that the third one is not even less than 30. But then we have true. Why? Because of this value, we have 25. 25 is greater than 20. That's why we have true. So the AND function just needs only one or two or three. But if you have three of it that are true, fine. If you have four, fine. But the OR function just needs only one for it to result to true. Are we good?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. Now that we understand the OR and the AND function, right? Now let's go and make sense out of it because true or false is not making sense for me. So let's go back to our AND function.
Give us real life situation that this all function is used, like true life situation.
Why are you faster than your shadow? Relax. So now let's make sense out of the OR and the AND function, right? Because true or false is not making any sense. So now you're a teacher in your class, right? And you want to work on promotion results for your students, right? So the condition to be promoted to the next class, or the condition for something to be delivered, or the condition for somebody to get an extra salary. You can see situations. I'm calling out ways that you can use this, right? The person that asked. So but now you're now a class teacher. So you want to promote your student. For the condition for your student to be promoted means that the person must score for the first test in class, the person must score greater than 10. And for the second test in class, the person must score greater than 20 according to what we have here for the student to be promoted, right? So it means that for the student to say, for you to say, oh, this student is promoted into class 5, it means that the first test that the student is going to score must be greater than 10, and the second test must be greater than 20. It means that if I score greater than 10 in the first class and in second class and I score less than 20, I'm not going to get promoted. So I must meet these two criteria. So my first test is going to be promoted, right? My first test is going to be greater than 10 and my second test must be greater than 20. So here, for me to combine these two conditions, right, these two logic, I have to use the AND function. For instance, this one says false. Sorry, this one says, okay, this is the main one we want to use. Remember I use equals to here. Let me clear content. So this one says false. So I'm trying to see, okay, the student that is going to be promoted into class 5 must score greater than 10 and score greater than 20 in the first and second test, right? So he must meet this condition. So using the AND function to check, to return true or false for me. So true, false means that, oh, this person is not going to be promoted. And true means, okay, this person is going to be promoted. Why? Because they score greater than 10 and here they score greater than 20. But this is just saying true or false. Now, if I give this thing to the headmaster, like, okay, take, this is the grading, and he opens it and he's saying student 1 true, student 1, student 2 false, he's going to think that I'm crazy because what is this? So I have to make it in such a way that it makes sense, right? So if this headmaster is saying it, is either he's saying promoted or not promoted instead of saying true or false. Is either he's saying promoted or not promoted. This is now where I'm going to add the if function. I'm going to add the if function inside of my AND function, right? I'm going to say, take this AND function and evaluate it. If this result you get here is false, do value if false. If this result here you get here is resulting to true, do value if true. So I'm combining the if function and the AND function together, basically telling the if function, take whatever the AND function is going to give you, right? So in SQL, we call it subquery. We call it subquery. So the inner query or what you have here, the inner formula, is not going to give you the answer, you, that is the audience, is going to give that answer to the outer query or the outer formula. And the outer formula will use it to perform its own answer or calculation and then give you a result. Let's see what we're talking about. So if I'm trying to make sense out of this, I'm going to say equals to the if function, right? So the if function is going to be my outer query or my outer function. What is going to be the logical test? The logical test is going to be and. Take this and function, right? So my and function is taking what? Is checking if B2 is greater than 10, right? That's the first logic. And it's checking if C2 is greater than 20. You know that this and function, this formula we have here, no, just don't look at the if, right? The formula we have here from and, this and function is what we just did here, and it's going to result to true or false, right? It's going to result to that. But now, the AND function is not going to give you an answer. It's going to give that answer to the if function, because the if function is waiting at the door and saying, do this thing that you're doing and give me the answer that you have gotten. Now, remember that we can tell the if function what to do if something is true and what to do if something is false. We already have true or false. So the if function is now going to say, okay, if the AND function gives me and this thing is true, if the AND function gives me something and says, okay, true, what should I do? Right? This is now where you're now going to tell the if function. You're going to say promoted, right? So if the AND function, the if function is going to say, okay, if the AND function will give me something and that thing is false, what should I say? I should say not promoted. Close my quote. Right. Now I'm going to close my bracket. So what is going to happen here again? Let me go over it. Is that this is called in SQL, those ones are already faster than us. They call it subquery, right? When you say subquery or sub formula, it means that something is inside of something, right? So it's called an inner query, inner formula. So that inner formula is not going to give you, that is the prompter or that is the analyst, an answer. It's going to give the outer formula that you have there, because you're saying, okay, this outer formula, stay here and handle whatever you get. So the if function now is working as a bodyguard. Now let's call it a bodyguard, and it's saying that I need you to categorize, or I need you, or it's standing as a middleman somewhere and saying that we are telling it, okay, I need you to watch the AND function for me. If we give you false, push false to this side. If you give you true, push true to this side, right? So we are not going to see what the AND is going to give to the if function. What we know is that if the if function returns promoted, it means that the AND function gave it true. If you return not promoted, it means that the AND function gave it false, right? So if I say enter, you can see not promoted, right? And then I can autofill. This one says promoted because the AND function gave it resulted to true. It's not using this to work. I can delete this. Remember that we had to write our formula ourselves, right? So inside of our formula, we have the AND function working. That's the AND function we wrote first, right? Where we got true or false. Now we're trying to make that true or false to make more sense, because true or false is not making so much sense, right? So we're now saying, okay, this true or false that we have, give it to the if function. So the if function is now going to help us do something. So if it is true, do this. If it is false, do this. Mind you, we can also add calculations. So we can say, if it is true, say plus 1. If it is false, equals to this. We can use numbers, not just text, right? So I can say, if it is true, 1 plus 1. If it is false, 2 plus 2. What am I trying to say? Hope I'm not confusing you people further anyways. So if I say, if the value that the if function, I'm just trying to tell you that you can use numbers also, not just text to, you can tell your if function to perform calculation if something is true. It's basically, you are basically just prompting the if function to do whatever you want it to do if something is true, and do another thing if the thing is false. Are we there? Am I talking to myself?
Sorry.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Good.
I know that some people are lost. but you'll be fine
I'm
in
like,
Jesus' name.
I'm like, I'm just thinking of something. I don't know if it's possible. Now, in the column that you just deleted, the E column that you deleted, I was wondering, instead of writing the and function again, can we not just impute the E2 stuff? I don't know if you get my question.
Understand?
Like,
Like using the if function.
yeah, we want to use the nested function for if and and.
Yes.
So if yeah, exactly. Now, since E already executed our hand for us, thinking, do we have to implement in? Why not just do if and if to? They will tell it what it will do.
Yes, that is going to work. Ish. Can you
Instead
mute
of
now?
writing,
Can you mute now? So this this is going to work perfectly, right? But I'm going to tell you why it is not advisable, right? So if this is true, promoted. If it is false, sorry, if this is true, not false. Anyhow, not promoted. It's going to handle it anyways.
not promoted.
If it is not false, it's basically true, right? So we can just say here promoted. That person should please mute. I can hear myself and I don't like it. So this is why did they give me promoted? Let's see. Oh, it's your formula. I want to scatter my head, but that's not even why I'm here. I don't want to be going over it. Now, if you write this very well, right? Let me take this away. I'm going to bring it back. If you write this very well, you're going to get the same answer, basically categorizing true or false, saying if this text is equals to true, do this. If this text is equals to false, do this, right? But you know that the moment you delete this column, you're going to start getting a reference error, right? So now when you give somebody a data set like saying true or false, promoted, not promoted, is that not confusing? As a data analyst, do you consider that as a clean data? Are you going to consider that as a data that is clean? I'm asking who asked that question.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Exactly. So if you have a way that you can make your data to be clean, perfectly clean, right? Why not do it that way? Instead of getting your and function and then using the if function, which is even harder by the way, if you even ask me, because you are going through one step 2 billion times, right? So instead of doing it this way, getting your and function first here and then getting using this answer that you get here to get your if function, because the moment you delete anything you have here, this is also gone because this is gotten from this. But if I get this directly from the source, right, my data is going to be very clean. So if I delete this, my data is going to be very clean. So I have promoted or not promoted, which is what I'm trying to achieve. So I don't need to go over the AND function, then go over the if function using the answer that I got from the AND function. I can just tell the if function that, okay, take whatever the AND function is going to give to you. Don't give me the answer. Just do the calculation in the back and then give me whether it's promoted or not promoted. Do you understand?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. Please, I have a question, please.
Okay.
Sorry, please, can we bring the and before the if also? I will get the same thing.
No, you cannot. If you
Okay,
bring the
okay.
and outside, the and is going to be the outer query. So it's basically what are you telling the if to do? Remember I said inner and outer function. The inner function, you're not going to get an answer. The answer you're going to get is what is outside. So whatever you answer you want to get is the one that is going to be outside that is going to give you the answer. So if I want to get promoted or not promoted, who is going to give me that? The if function, right?
Yes, yes.
So the if function will have to be at the gate waiting to group these two things for me. So if I put the if function before the and function, is it going to still get it? The if function is not going to be the inner one. The and function is not going to be. That formula will not work by the way, but I'm just trying to explain to you that you put the one you want to get
Okay.
an answer outside.
Okay, okay.
Are we clear now?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Where's Miriam? Thank you.
So now the same thing with our off function. Like our and our off, you know how to use the and function. The off function is just the same thing, right? So now we want to use the same thing. So let's call this and let's call this one or, right? This is and if, by the way, and an if, and this is or and if. So now we want to promote our students, right? But the criteria for promotion is either in your first test you scored greater than 10 or in your second test you scored greater than 20. So it means that this person that scored greater than 10 or this person that scored okay, this is not greater than 10. Let's use something else where it's not promoted here. This person that scored greater than 10 here, but in the second test they did not score greater than 20, they will get promoted because one of the condition is met, right? So all you need to do is either you score in the first test, you scored greater than 10 for you to be promoted, or in the second test, you score greater than 20. So if you don't do very well in the first test and you do very well in the second test, you're going to get promoted. If you don't do very well in the second test and you do very well in the first test, you're going to get promoted. The only time you will not be promoted is if you do not do well in both tests. That is, if you do not score greater than 10 in the first test and if you do not score greater than 20 in the second test. So that's the only time you will not be promoted, right? So for me to do that, I'm going to say equals to the if function is going to be outside, right? And inside of the if function, I'm going to give you the or function. So the or function is going to take this, it's going to check if what we have here is greater than 10, right? That's the first one. Or the second test that the person did, is it greater than 20, right? So if these two conditions, if they evaluate this condition and one of it is true, just promote the person. So we're going to say if true, we're going to say promoted, and if it's now false, what should happen? Not promoted. Close our quote, right? So the if function is going to be waiting at the gate. Remember, it's just waiting there. My own is to say not promoted or not promoted or promoted. That is, when the or function comes to it, it's going to come with two things, true or false. So the if function is waiting at the gate, collect you to collect the bag and start examining it. You say, okay, you gave me true. What they say I should do in true? Put the person in promoted. Okay, you gave me false. What they say I should do? Put the person in not promoted. So the or function is going to evaluate what we have here and give the if function either true or false. And if function is going to categorize them using those true or false value. So if I close my bracket and enter, you can see not promoted. Why is this person not promoted? Because neither one of the two conditions is met. This is not greater than 10. This is not greater than 20. So the person cannot be promoted. Let's autofill. Consider everybody is promoted. Even the person that was not promoted in the and function is promoted now in the or function, right? So you can see because of the person scored greater than 10 in the first test, but in the second test, they did not score greater than 20, but then they have escaped because the or function says either you did well here or you did well here or you did well in both of them, but you cannot not do well in both of them for me to. So if I say not promoted, it means that you did not score any good score in the both tests that you had. So in first test you did not score greater than 10, in the second test you did not score greater than 20, so you cannot be promoted. Do we know the difference between or and now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So that's the difference between it. So when we add the or function, the if function to it, is because we're trying to make sense out of it, because having true or false is is not making any sense. So we can tell the if function to do something else. Remember I said calculation. You can tell the if function, okay, if it is true, check 1 plus 1. If it is false, check 2 plus 2. If it is true, say on its way. If it is false, say not on its way. If it is true, say class A. If it is false, say class B. So if we are trying to group our students into two classes, So those ones that scored very good, that they did well in the first and second test, scoring greater than 10, scoring greater than 20 using the AND function, push them to class A. Those ones that not do well in both tests, push them to class B. That's the AND function, right? You can say that. You can use the if function, write as long text as you want. You can put calculations if you want. But the if function is there to make your true or false value that you have from the AND function make sense, because I'm not sure you've seen anybody do any calculation or create any visuals and you're seeing true or false, right? Hope that is okay. Hope we're clear. We are perfectly clear. Nobody is struggling.
We are clear.
Very, very clear.
All right. Valentine, okay, person's trying to enter. All right. So that's an example of a nested function in there that we have, right? An example of a nested function. Going forward, we are going to be seeing nested functions, adding um sum and average together, sum and other functions together, right? So we're going to be seeing that. But let's talk about the if error function before our time finishes. So the if error function, we said that is a bodyguard, right? We have different type of errors in Excel. Number one, you have reference error. We have reference errors when you are trying to reference something and that thing cannot be found, like the one we just did. So when you see REF, is that's called a reference error. It means what you're trying to reference is not there. So for instance, if you write a project and you tell me, oh, I got it from Mr. Chinedu, and I check online and I not see any Mr. Chinedu, that is a reference error right there because there's no any Mr. Chinedu online. So that's how that error is generated. We have other errors. We have division by zero error. We have NA errors and so on. Plenty of them, even value error. Now, what the if error function does is that it handles any type of errors at all in Excel. So anywhere it sees error, because having errors in your work, it means that you did not clean your data is referred to as a dirty data. Nobody wants to have a dirty data. So what the if error function does is that it handles this error for you, right? It makes sure that your data is clean perfectly. So now I'm trying to perform a calculation and I'm saying 10 divided by 5, 10 divided by 0, 10 divided by this, 10 divided by nothing. Let's see what happens. So if I say equals to this divided by this, it says 2, right? That is correct. But now if I autofill, you can see I have division by 0, I have value error, division by 0, right? This is not nice. This is not, I cannot send this data to you or send this data to my boss or send this data to somebody or even post it online. Because it's why am I having errors everywhere? Like why are there errors everywhere, right? That's not nice, not a nice view. So what the if error function does is that it will handle this error however you want it to handle it, right? Is your short, you tell it what to do with the errors, right? So let's say I want it to kick the errors out or kick it out anytime it finds an error, right? What should it do? So if I say equals to if error, right, I'm giving it a value, right? So my value is either going to be what I have here. So I can give it what I have here or I can give it the calculation itself. So I can say what I have here, that's 2, right? What I have in C2, right? Comma, and I'm going to tell it what to do. So what you do is you say kick out. You can see that I'm not asking it is this equals to error, is C2 equals to error, because it knows it work. The only time you call it out or the only time it does something if it is an error. So you don't need to start telling it if this is equals to error. No. The name already, he already knows that the only thing I'm coming to look for here is error, right? So you don't have to tell me my job. Just give me the thing. I'll check if there is error in it. So that way we are just giving it C2 and we're putting in bracket kick out. So if this value that you have here is an error, kick it out, right? So if I close my bracket and enter, it says 2. Again, the if error function will not attack your formula or your calculation or your value or whatever if it does not find an error. It will move smoothly. So if you can put your if error function anywhere in your calculation, in between all of your calculations, it's not going to even show that it's there until it finds an error. That's the only time you know that this function is here. It's just like a bouncer, like I said, it's allowing females just chilling one side. You're thinking, you're okay, you now decide that, oh, let me just call my friend as the guy say, there's no bouncer here, come inside. Then the bouncer will not see a guy, then you now decide to start to now be active. That's what the if error function is. So it will be chillaxing and be relaxing as long as it does not find an error. The moment it finds an error, it will jump up. So if I autofill, let's see what it did with the errors that we have. You can see it changed it to kick it out, to kick out, kick out, kick out, because that is what I said it should do, right? I can also tell it to do something else, maybe perform another calculation as it sees an error. So if you notice, I gave it this value, right? What I have here, right? But since we have been talking, I said this is not the perfect way for you to do things because by the time I take this out, because I'm handling errors, so I don't see this. But by the time I take this out, right? If I delete this, sorry, I not okay. I did it. Let's control Z. If I clear this, let me clear, not delete. Can you see that everything is now 000 because it cannot even find anything? So the if error function is saying that you gave me an empty cell, you gave me an empty cell. Okay, nothing, 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 nothing. Right. So you cannot delete that. So that's not the best way for you to handle. That's not the best way for you to handle your errors, right? So you give it the calculation itself and not what you have calculated already. So instead of me to saying 10 divided by 5, I'm going to say equals to if error, right? My if error is going to take the value. So it's going to say 10 divided by 5. Remember, it's going to say this divided by this. So remember that this is an inner calculation. This A divided by B is an inner calculation. So the inner calculation will now pass it to the error function. The error function will look at it. If there is no error, it will send it to you. If there's an error, it's going to do what you ask it to do with it, right? But this function or this formula that you have, the result of this formula is going to pass through this if error, and the if error function is going to handle it. So what should it do if it finds an error? It should kick out. Close my quotes, close my bracket, enter. You can see that 2, it did not affect it. So if I autofill, I have kick out. There's no division by zero error here. There's no value error showing. I did not even know if there was an error before. But now I know because at least the if error function only works only when it sees an error. And it did what? It kicked it out. Right? So that's what the if error function does for you. You can tell it, okay, leave it blank. Instead of kicking it out, we can tell it, instead of giving us error, return a blank cell. Return a blank cell to us. Let it be empty. Instead of missing error, just return a blank cell. We can also tell it, instead of it you returning a blank cell, give me 0. Right? So if I autofill, I'm going to say get 0. We can also tell it, instead of you to return 0, anytime you find an error, do 1 plus 1. So if we autofill, can you see we have 2? So anytime he finds an error, because there is an error here, he did 1 plus 1. Because he found an error here, he did 1 plus 1. Because he found an error here, he did 1 plus 1. So the only time it's going to work or it's going to come into action, let me change that from 1 plus 1 because I can see you can see 2. Maybe you're thinking 2. Let me say 1 plus 7. I see we have 8, 8 everywhere because he found error and he decided to handle it the way I wanted it to handle. He did not touch this 2 because 10 divided by 5 is 2. That is not an error. So he worked perfectly. He just escaped it and said, okay, this one you can go. You don't have any error. But these ones I found error, I'm going to do what my Oga wants me to do. Do we understand the if error function? Who does not understand? What don't you understand?
Understand.
You need to tell me
Uh,
what you don't understand now.
Understand.
Now watch the video again and continue the class. I will go back.
The if error function is very simple. I don't know why you don't understand because I don't know how else to explain it. So now there's a bodyguard at the party. And that party is supposed to be for girls. Now the bodyguard is there, and the only time this bodyguard is going to walk or do something is only when he finds a guy. The party is strictly for girls. So the bodyguard is there and he's saying, And I tell it the only time you're going to do something is when you find the guy. And when you find the guy, kick him out of the party. Right? So the bodyguard is just there. So it will stand at the door. If he sees a girl, he will not harass the girl. So no, he will not search the girl, nothing. Just allow the girl to be moving fully, girls moving fully into the party, right? But then he finds a guy, he's now going to attack the guy and kick him out because that's what I asked you to do. I say, if you find the guy in this party, kick him out. So anybody is a girl, is another gender, is that person is not identifying as a male, person is going to be allowed into the party. But if the moment the person say, oh, I'm a guy, or I see that the person is a guy, I'm kicking the person out because that's what I was asked to do. That's exactly what the if error function is. So the if error function is going to take your calculation or take your value if you've already calculated it, right? And check. We're not telling you to check for error. The moment you call it, as the name implies, is error. So you're not going to say go and check for error. The moment you call it, it knows that my job here is to check if I find error, right? And the job I'm going to do, check if I find error, you tell me what I should do with that error. So you're going to give it a value or give it a calculation. So if I say 1 plus 1, right? If I write 1, if I say 1, if I give you 1 plus 1, 1 plus 1, right? And if this is going to result, you're going to give you the answer to whatever you have here. So whoever asks the question, let's say your name is Chinelo, right? And I tell you, Chinelo, what is 1 plus 1? 1 plus 1 is 2. Now, whatever answer you get here, you're not going to give it to me. Oh. You're going to pass it through the if error function. Different function will look at it and say, okay, there's no error. Take your answer. If he finds an error, because the if error function is like my safety guide and is making sure that you're not giving me error, right? So it will check it. Okay, you gave me 1 plus, I gave you 1 plus 1 to solve. So you're going to give the answer to the if error function. If error function is going to look at it. Is there an error? No. Okay, take. If there's an error, what is it going to do? So I'm going to tell you what to do if you find an error. That's just what the if error function does. I don't know the simplest way to, I don't know how else to explain this. Maybe you have to watch the video again. But basically, that's just what the if error function does. So when you add it to your calculation, you are saying if A divided by B, the answer you're going to get from A divided by B, check if you are going to find an error. If you find an error there, say 7 plus 1, give me 7 plus 1. That's value if error, right? If you don't want it to say value plus 1, you can tell it in quotes. You can say error found, whatever way you want to write it. So by the time you check A2 divided by B2, that's 10 divided by 5, right? If it finds an error, what should it do? It will say error found. If it does not find an error, what should it do? It's going to give you your answer because there's no error. That's the same thing happening with the party. If you check is a girl, the girl will pass. If you check is a boy, that's the boy is an error. What should you do? It will kick it out, right? So if you check and it's the answer there is no error, it's going to say go. If it finds an error, what should it say? It should say error found. So now if I autofill, remember anytime I autofill, the boxes get the formula that I have in the first one automatically. That's why it's changing. So if I autofill now, or error found, error found, error found, because this is going to give us an error like we saw before. 10 divided by 0 is going to give us division by 0 error. So because he found an error, that is why he said error found. Honestly, I've tried to break this down. If anybody does not understand at this point, you seriously need to go back to the video maybe after the class.
Understand.
Okay, so that is it about our logical functions, right? We're going to move to, our time has gone, but then we are just going to explain statistical functions so that when we come in our next class, we're just going to start from there, right? So statistical functions that we have. So remember we did the count function and we did the if function. Now, one of the statistical functions we have is called count if, right? So we did count function in our last class and we said how many orders do we have, what are the total orders, what are the total products gotten, all of those things. We did that in our last class, right? And today we did the if function. So now when you combine the count and the if together to form just one, this is not a nested function, this is a single function. It's not a nested function, it's a single function. Count if is a function on its own. You're not writing count and if together. They are just one single function. So when you combine it together, you can use it to calculate. So basically what we did in our last class was total order. What if I want to check total order generated by female gender, of total order gotten by females? Will I go to my data and start counting? I will trace it. Okay, this is a female, I'll count it. Female, count it. Right? That's going to be really stressful. So this is where the count if comes into the picture. Right? So the if function, which is a conditional function. The if function, which is a conditional function, like we can use it to count our data based on specific criteria, just a single criteria. So we have the count if. So I can count number of cells based on a single criteria or a single condition, right? So I'm going to call out the count if function and give it a range. That's the range of cell, and I'm going to give it a criteria. So the criteria is the condition. I'm saying go to the data that you have and count these people based on the criteria. So go to the class of boys. Sorry, go to class A and count how many girls you have. So the range is class A, the criteria is girls. So go to the class and count girls for me, right? So the range is where I just want you to write this down because we're going to need this when we come in our next class. The range is where you can find the criteria. The range is where you can find the criteria. So if I say go to the class and count the number of girl or female students that we have, where are you going to find the criteria is what? Female. The person must be a female, right? So where are you going to find the female in the class? That is the range. So the range is where you can find the criteria. Just have that at the back of your mind or write it somewhere, right? So the count if is just a single condition. So just go to the class and count female students for me. That's for count if. That's single criteria. Then we have count ifs. What if I want to count females that are above 18? How do I do that? Will I separate females then start saying, oh, are you 18? Come here, let me count you. Are you 18? Come here, let me count you. No. I can use the count is function to do that. Right? So I'm not going to give it a condition. I'm going to say count this student only when the person is female and the person is above 18. So if the person is a female and the person is not above 18, I'm not going to count the person. Or if the person is above 18 and is not female, it's not going to. So all the criteria must be met before the count if function is going to work. That's count ifs. So we can give it multiple criteria. So it can be we can say count females that are above 18 that their name starts with letter C. So it means that the student must be a female and the person must be above 18 and the person later must start with letter C. So if I'm working with a supermarket data and I want to see sales that were made by John, so I can say count sales made by John, right? So the sales I'm going to count is going to be by John, right? So I want to know how many sales John did. So I can also say count sales made by John in the north. So in case I have John in the south, I want to be able to differentiate this John, right? So this is the sales made by John in the south. So the criteria is that this person must be John and the sales must be done in the north, right? Using sales data to explain this. That's what I'm trying to do. So we can use the count if, we can use the count ifs. So count ifs takes multiple criteria. Then we have the sum if. The sum if the sum if takes the sum if we remember we said that the sum if is for adding up numbers in a specific criteria in a range, right? Now imagine we want to add up numbers. Let's say we want to get total revenue generated by John. We got total revenue in our last assignment, total revenue generated, right? So what if we want to get specifically by John, our salesperson John? How do we do that? This is where we are now using the sum if. So we give it a range, we give it a criteria, and we have a sum range. You notice that we don't have a sum range, a count range here, because count is counting number of cells, right? It's not adding. But here I need a sum range because sum is taking only number column. So if I give it a range, remember that the range is where you can find the criteria. The criteria is that it must be John, right? So where I can find John, maybe in the salesperson's name, then my sum range is going to be what I want to sum up, which is the revenue, right? So that column must be a column that you can calculate. So that's for the sum if. But then for the sum ifs, you have multiple criteria, just like the count ifs. You have multiple criteria. So I can say sum total revenue generated by John in the north. So I want to see the revenue that John that we have in the north generated, not the one in the south, right? So it's now going to check, okay, this John, is he in the north? How much did he generate for us? So I can give you multiple criteria. So I can say John in the north, or John with letter E as surname or something like that, right? So that is for the sum ifs, right? So don't worry if you're getting confused. It's better when you see it in action, I believe. So that's for the sum if. Then we have the average if, and we have average ifs too. The same thing with your sum if and count if. Your average if add numbers or gets you the mean of a specific criteria. So I can get the average value of females in my class, or the average values of males in my class. Instead of getting the average value of the entire class, I can get for a specific range. So we have average if, we have average ifs. So that's multiple conditions. Then we have the Corel function. So this function is used to work on correlation, check correlation coefficients. So let me explain what correlation is. Correlation is, let's say, the reason why something happened, something like that. Let me put an example. So if you give me ice cream, I'm happy, right? So now there's a correlation between I and ice cream, because whenever you give me ice cream, I am happy. So there's a correlation between the both of us. Okay. So ice cream is the cause of the happiness. That's what correlation is. But now there's something called correlation coefficient. That's the strength of the relationship between I and this ice cream. So how much happiness do I get from this particular ice cream that you give to me? We can calculate it, right? So now if you use the Corel function to calculate this and you get a value that is close to 1, right? Any value you get that is close to 1, it means that, oh, ice cream is the cause, that we have a very strong relationship. Ice cream make me really, really happy, right? But then if you get a value that is close to -1, it means that's a negative relationship. It means that whenever you give me ice cream, I'm sad. So ice cream is, we have a relationship, but then it is not a healthy relationship, it's a toxic one, right? So anytime you give me ice cream, I'm sad. So there's a relationship and it's not a good one. And then we have another one, which is if you like get zero, if you get zero as your answer when you use the correct function, it means that there is no relationship. So whether or not you give me ice cream, I will be how I am. So I'm not happy whether you give me ice cream, I'm not sad with it. So there's no relationship between the both of us. So correlation is the measurement of relationship between two variables, right? Two variables. How one variable is affecting the other variable, how one independent variable is affecting the dependent variable. That's just what correlation is. And we use the Corel function to check the strength of this relationship. Then we have the small and the large function. Remember here in our last class, yes, in our last class we did the main and the max function. The same thing with the small and the large function. So the small function is going to give you the smallest number. The large function is going to give you the largest number. But then where it is now better than the mean and large is that the small function can give you the next smallest number. So if I get, let's say I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I say what is the smallest number? Smallest number is 1, right? If I say what is the next smallest number? The next smallest number is going to be 2. So with the small function I can get this, but with the main function I can't get this. Main function is just going to give me straight up 1, which is the smallest. I cannot get the next smallest number. So that's where the small function is better than the main function. Same thing with the large function. Large function is going to give you the biggest number, right? But then it can give you the second biggest number, the third biggest number, however you prompt it to give to you. So the K here means if I give you the array, sometimes it can be called array, sometimes it can be called range. I'm basically telling you the range of data or the column of where you have the numbers. So you can be called, you can see it as range, you can see it as array. They're basically telling you that your data. So if I give you the range of data that I have, right? Like where a column where I have 1 to 10, and my k is 0, means give me the smallest number. If my k is 1, it means give me the next smallest number. If my k is 2, it means give me the second smallest number. Same thing with the large. If I give you the array that I have and my k is 0, it means give me the largest number, which is the same thing the max function will return. But if I say if my k is 1, means give me the next largest number. That's just what the k is used for. So that's the difference between the small and large function and the mean and max function. Alright, so that's it for our statistical functions, which is where we're going to start when we come for our next class. Right. So are we good?
Yes, yes, yes.
No,
Okay. But somebody's hand
Yes,
has been up. Someone's hand has been up in this class since Femi. Femi Kilode.
I think he was requesting in the comment section if we can get the slide you're using to teach us, which I think you
You
answered
already knew
partly.
that no, that the slides cannot be given. Sorry. You can take pictures of it and all of that, but I cannot release the slides to you. Sorry. Okay. So that being said, does anybody have any question concerning what we have done today? Okay. So you can see that step by step it's getting harder, right? Don't be piling up your work and be saying, "Oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll get to it now," because where we are today is not what we're going to be tomorrow. It gets tougher, like along the line. It gets so, and if you have skipped A, to get B is going to be hard for you, right? Everything is a sequence. If I had just come to the class and start teaching you statistical functions without teaching you basic functions like count and if, you probably be so confused like what is count, what is if. But now we've done count, you already understand what count is used for and you know what if is used for. So when I combine these two things together, it will make more sense to you, right? Compared to when I just come and just give you statistical functions. So that everything is a gradual process. And if you skip A, it's going to be really hard for you to understand B. So always go back to the last class video if you do not understand stuff. Also, you have over 150 people, if I'm not mistaken, or 120 people in the group chat. You cannot always be waiting for me to answer your question. If you have a question and I don't answer you immediately, which I'm not always with my phone, to reach me on WhatsApp is if I got scripts, I even attend to you faster on Twitter compared to WhatsApp. So if you have a question, you have a group chat of over 120 people, you can go there and ask your question. If somebody was saying something about accountability partner, and I love it because you and your accountability partner cannot be struggling at the same time. This person must know something that you do not know, right? So if you're struggling with something, you can ask the person. If both of you are struggling with something, both of you carry your hands and come back to the group chat and ask questions. But you don't just relax and say, "Oh, Annie did not reply me, so I'm not going to do anything about it." If Annie does not reply you in 10 months, in 4 months' time, and you don't get it, it's your loss, not mine. So you have people in the group chat. You're supposed to make friends. You're supposed to talk to people. You're supposed to ask questions. You don't just stay in your island and expect Annie to attend to you every single time. Because as some people will say, we paid for the class, which I already said before. I don't want to hear that again. Right? Because you paid for the class, you now means that you should kill me for my mother. I beg. Anyways, so that being said, do not sit in your houses and always wait for me or Chidima or Jude to attend to your questions before you get them done. There are other people that you can chat or privately if you are shy. You have seen people that speak frequently in the group chats. Make them your friends. Go to their DMs and ask them questions. The more you ask questions or the more you teach someone, the more you get it, right? So don't just don't be shy. Some people are shy. They also, oh, let me let this person not laugh at me. We're all learning here.